Episode of Quantum Growth for Financial Advisors. It is your host, John Cutton, with soon I just need to call this guy my co-host, John Randall, from Extraordinary Financial Advisors, or XFA.com, with us today. So, Johnny, say hello to the audience, please.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. This progression of topics of production levels and what you're dealing with, what the issues are, how to get to the next level. It's been really great. We've gotten a lot of great feedback on it, and we're excited to do some more of these.
So for those of you listening or watching on YouTube, I just said to John, he looks like so professorish with his glasses. He doesn't always wear glasses, but man, I don't know what you all think, but he just seems smarter with those glasses on.
It's the only reason I wear them.
Yeah, 2020 eyesight. This is all just, I'm telling you, just to be
look, yeah.
professorish. I, on the other hand, need glasses because I can't read anymore, but I refuse to wear them because I don't like the way I look in glasses. And I guess I'm a little vain, maybe. So anyway, so yes, today we did get tons of good feedback from listeners on our last three, I guess it was, episodes where we really talked about the different levels of growing a financial advisory business. And today we are going to focus on advisors who are nearing that $5 million mark of gross revenue, right? So a little bit of a larger business. You might be 3, 4, 500 million or better in assets, and you should start thinking about what it looks like to be a $5 to $10 million producer before you get there. The time to start thinking about it isn't once you're there generally. It's just a little bit earlier, because you should start to have some predictability to how your business is going to continue to grow. So I want to just real quickly reframe. I love to just say this over and over and over again. So I'm just going to say it again, right? So remember, 0 to $1 million on average. It's grit, it's sales ability, it's just hard work and stick-to-itiveness. And for most of us, that's 0 to $1 million-ish in revenue. That million to say 2.5 to 3 million of revenue, right? It's about having a process and a system, the client service experience, the financial planning process, what you deliver to the client, that thing that you do actually creates growth in the business. Your clients don't leave you. They give you more of their wallet share, and they ultimately introduce you to their friends and family, right? And you've even built other ways to bring some clientele into the business, okay? That's that second phase of growth. And then the third phase of growth, which is more where I think we'll focus more of our time today. And remember, these blend over a little bit, right? It's almost like, connecting the dots backwards, right? In phase 2 and 3 of growth, you're still got to make sure that things in phase 2 are happening. That client experience just doesn't necessarily mean that you're in charge of it, right? And you've got to start to elevate. And again, 10x is easier than 2x. I didn't even tell you this, Johnny. I got to interview Dan Sullivan on my podcast. I don't even think I told you that yet. So he might be released before or after you, but I'm super pumped. So 10x is easier than 2x. We got to go kind of deep on that. And it's just about continuing to recreate what's your next 10x, right? And that's really what we're kind of talking about here. But that third phase of growth, it's really about how we actually use leverage, right? And you can leverage 3 things: capital, technology, and human capital, or people, right? And in order to actually generally leverage human capital, you need to develop leadership skills, so on, et cetera. So with that kind of frame out, John, when you start to think about that $5 million to $10 million space, as advisors, what's the paradigm shift? What do they need to be thinking about to think a little bit differently, maybe than they were in the previous phase of business growth?
Probably the biggest difference here is others are executing. Not so much the owner, the CEO, which is the role that the owner evolves into. It's others are doing it. In the earlier stages, it's the owner's the one grit and grind, right? Even at over $1 million, they're still the star that's doing the most and making it happen. That 2 to 5 million we covered last time, that's a tough stage. I mean, that's where you're kind of building the pieces and rebuilding the foundation. And once you get over, 5 million, okay, there's some revenue here to work with, and you've got a little bit more firepower. And this is the stage where it gets a little bit easier to take off, because it is about other people. It's not about you as the owner doing everything. It's other people are the ones executing. So as Cutton said, the leadership and helping these people is really critical. May not be at the stage yet that you can have enough revenue to hire like a sales manager for all your advisors who might not quite be there yet. We see that over 10 million, where some of those who's get into place. So you're probably going to have to do that. But I think the biggest difference is you're not going to be the one who's seeing all the clients, who's bringing in all the new clients. You're going to be developing your advisors to do that. You're going to be working on different things. And in the essence of 10x is easier than 2x. I mean, the whole concept is 20% of what you do is really going to help you get to 10x. The other 80% is going to limit you to only 2x. So what are those things that you can do? It's helping the other people in their team. Maybe you're more in the mergers and acquisition space, whereas the other advisors are the ones working with clients, driving organic growth of doing more with clients, getting referrals, getting new clients, new net flows in the door. So that's probably the biggest shift right there, which is hard change, right? If you're the one that's been doing everything, it's hard to let go and let others do it. I think that's one of the biggest challenges at this crossover.
So John, let me drill down a little more though. Let me ask you a question. So you coach lots of advisors in that $5 to $10 million space. Honestly, you coach more advisors in that space than anyone I know. Doesn't mean there's no one doing more of it, but you do as much of it as anybody that I know, probably more of it. Is it a different way of thinking? Is it CEO versus practitioner? I'm gonna hit you with a cut and two step. Is it CEO versus practitioner? And the second piece is, the folks that you're coaching or the practices at that level, are they still a practitioner in most cases? I'm sure there's a different answer, but are they working with clients 50% of their time, 100% of their time, 10% of their time, 0% of their time, or do you find it all over the place in different direction?
Yeah, it is a great question. I find at the most part, they're working with a small group. They've got a really small group, usually 50 clients or less. Who are very high net worth, create a lot of revenue. It's usually the case. Not a lot of them are completely out of that. They still got some of that work, so it's still a smaller percentage of their week. So right. I mean, think about that could be done in one day of the week instead of 3 or 4 days of the week when you're at 1 million. So it's usually the case there that there's some on the plate there, but it's that transition to more of the CEO role is really the key. And just going back to that's probably the hardest part, because everything I've learned getting my PhD work in psychology, as humans, we crave equilibrium. Right. And when something's different or there's change or it requires us going out of our comfort zone, our brain says, no, that's not the way we do things around here. We stay in this bubble here. You want to go outside, that's bad. So we have to go out and change and get outside of that bubble if we're really going to grow. And it comes down to letting go. Right? You have to probably let go of the 100, 200 clients on your plate and somebody else on your team, or a combination of other advisors, maybe in a diamond team setting, needs to work with those clients. So that's the hardest part, is letting go of that role that really defined you all the way to this point. And to let go of that is really tough for people. And it's all these self-limiting beliefs of, well, the other advisors won't be as good as me, and they can't keep these clients, and, I'm everything for them. I love them. We've got to get over that stuff. You've got to get through that stuff and spend most of your week really being that true CEO, leading other people to execute greatness for the firm, and also getting into mergers and acquisitions. That stuff takes a lot of time. And if you look at the people on your team, you're probably the one capable of doing it. Advisors can service clients all day long. They probably can't do mergers and acquisitions. So it's a complete role shift that really happens, where it's much less of the client role, much more of leading others, much more of mergers and acquisitions. That's the big shift. So it is very much more CEO, minimal to some amount of still being the practitioner, working with a very small group, most of them 50 or less clients.
So one of the things that I would say, John, is completely agree with everything you said, by the way. Here's a very direct statement for me to make. Most advisors in the industry and most that are listening to this don't crest 5 million
Yes.
or get in that $5 to $10 million space. And that's okay, by the way, right? It's not what everybody wants to do, clearly. But I would say, and I'd like to see if you would agree, that the reason that advisors don't get there is because of their self-limiting beliefs and because of their lack of ability to change their role of going from I'm the advisor, I work with all of the clients or all of the best clients even, right? And my job is defined as being a financial advisor. Would you agree with that?
100%. It's very much the thing that holds people back. And I think you're right. A lot never get to this level, and there's so many like glass ceilings along the way. I mean, the practitioner that's trying to do everything themselves. I mean, I've said it before in these that, you know, 1 million, 1.5 million. I mean, that's like the sound barrier for an individual producer. It's really hard. There's only so much time. It's really hard to go beyond that.
Yeah, of
And
course,
unless you,
unless, sorry to interrupt you, Johnny. Of course, unless you work with ultra high net worth clients, right? And so there is,
of course, there's absolute exception, but typical advisor is going to cap out there, right? They're going to
yeah,
cap out. Yeah, I've seen people do 3-4 million by themselves, but they're outliers. That's not typical. It's not normal. But it's very much the stage where you've got to let go of so many things, and it's hard. And so I think that's probably the biggest reason that holds people back. The other thing I see too is just their structure of the practice is maybe built for only 2.5 million, and that's why they can't crest over that point. So I'll give an analogy here of a foundation of a building. If the foundation of your house or your building is only built to support 2 floors, that's all it can take. You can't build 5 floors, 10 floors on that foundation. It will all crumble. So I see people that have done, hey, I've got a foundation that can support 2 floors. I'm going to go make an acquisition and try and have 4 floors. Well, guess what? Those cracks are going to be greatly exposed, and things are going to crumble. So a lot of times what happens in that, 2 to 5 space, it requires going back and redoing the foundation. That, hey, we got to dig down. We've got to redo this foundation so that we can build on top of what we have and get to 5 stories, get to 10 stories, which could represent 5 million revenue, 10 million in revenue. And it's tough to do because, it's the things that you did that got you here are not going to be things that get you to the next level. So it's a really hard point to change. And the ones that really make those shifts and change, especially ones that we coach and work through, they're able to navigate those differences to get across that 5 million hurdle and even the 10 million hurdle. But most of the time they get stuck there because it's their business structure. It's the people on their team. It's their who's, not hows. That's really their limiters. And that's why they get stuck at, 2.5, 3 million and really struggle to get past 5.
Yeah. So speaking from experience, I had to go back in my own business, right? So I actually built a business that was doing north of 10 million. And then I realized, go back to, right, my 0 to million is grit and sales. The million to say 3-ish, or I always change the numbers, 3, 4, 5, you can pick the number, it doesn't really matter. But that middle level there is about having that system and that process that's how we do business here, that retains the client and grows the business. I want to say it again, retains the client and organically grows the business, that your client experience, your advisors, your team has a way to do business. It's your way, but that way has to be proven that it's going to grow, right? So what I did, John, is I did step 1. I'm not the average bear. I was grittier than most, right? And then I pushed through step 2, skip some of the steps of, to use your words, building the ideal foundation. My foundation wasn't terrible, but it wasn't a foundation that could build what's today around a 8.5 or $9 billion business, right? It was a foundation that wasn't able to go where I took the business. So I exceeded what the foundation was capable of. And it stressed the system, right?
Yes.
The client experience wasn't strong enough. The
Yep.
advisors weren't capable enough. I didn't have a written process of how we delight the client, right? There was no accountability. So I actually overgrew, then had to go back, which is way harder, mind you, while you have a bigger business, and fix the foundation, right? And then put those systems. And we figured it out. It was really hard. It took a long time, a lot of tough decisions. And then I was able to scale the business by 3 or
Yes.
4x because we actually fixed the foundation. So
Yep.
before we go a little further, there's another thing that you said that is exciting to me, right? Not exciting, but that I think we need to go a little deeper on, okay, is I'm a little critical today, I guess, but if you're an advisor listening to this and you have not reduced the size of your client base, you have not figured out how to take on the CEO role, okay, but you want to, and you're listening to podcasts and you're reading books and you're seeking help and you're thinking about it, and then you come in every day and you do what you've always done, okay, I want to be the voice of reason and your truth teller a little bit. 97% of you, made up statistic, that are in that category, you're not going to change unless you get help.
Yeah.
That's just, you need to be around, whether it be a coach like John, another coach who has the skill set, or a group of 5 other advisors that have already done it. If you don't have that support system, you're likely not going to ever change. And how do I know that? Because I've had lots of advisors who we've coached, lots of advisors who've joined my organization, lots of advisors who I've acquired their book of business that have called me for advice, right? And the reality of it is they are not capable. And the first role, I believe, or one of the biggest attributes of a great leader is being self-aware. So sometimes you need to look in the mirror and just go, hey, I built a $3.8 million business. And I'm really good, and I'm better than the average bear, and you are, right? But I'm not going to go to 10 million or 20 or 30 unless I completely change my identity. And in order to completely change my identity, I likely need a completely different structure, right? Different people around me, different thought process, just people who don't think the way I thought, because it's so ingrained in your habits that unless you've got a forceful source of helping you rewire your mindset as to what you're building, you'll go back to your old habits. And I see it over and over and over again. And I just wanted to hit that, and love to hear any of your comments, John. And then I think once we can mentally help our listeners get to that and go, okay, maybe I need some help to change, I think we can start to talk about some of the things you need to implement once you make that change with that time that you now have by giving up some of the 80% of the stuff that you do today.
Yeah, it's I've said it before. It's this title of a Marshall Goldsmith book who I love. I'm actually looking at it right now. What got you here won't get you there. It's very much
that,
that.
by the way. If you're watching on YouTube, I love when you just shove a book in the camera.
I got like 20 just hanging right here, ready to roll.
It's as if you have them on cue. It's amazing.
So it's difficult to even perceive what that different role is because you haven't lived it. And you're so right. You've got to be around other people who have made this transition, who have done it. You've got to learn from them. Or, get some kind of coaching out for people that have, either done it. What I like about the coaches on our team, they all have done it, right? They're people I've coached, they make these leaps and they like either giving back and helping part-time, or they've sold their business and they like doing this. But that's the people you need to learn from, is people that have already done this stuff and learn it, because they're going to show you the path the most effectively. They're going to say, oh, I was just like you and stuck. And this is the changes that I made up here in my head. And this is what I did differently that helped me finally break through and take off. Because it really is, it's different things at this stage. It's a completely different role that we've ever learned that got us to this point. And I think that's why it's so hard to really break through the sound barrier. It's just completely different stuff. So it's a lot of, psychology things, but it just goes back to change. It's really behavioral change is so critical. And you just need people around you to help with that knowledge and coaching to help you get there. And I'm thinking back to what you talk about, Ray Kelly talks about, is just adult learning, 10% from knowledge, 20% from coaching, 70% from doing, right? And you've got to get in there and do some things. But you know what? I find it accelerates learning if you're around other people that have already done it, right? You don't have to fall on your face 20 times. You could do it once and someone else says, oh, do it this way. And then you got it much faster. It shortcuts you so quickly. And going back to what the example you talked about, growing very quickly to 10 million at Cut and Wealth. It's like I talked about the foundation. Cracks just get exposed that, oh, I thought the client experience was good, but now I'm seeing it's not as good and people leave and the growth that I thought could happen is not happening. So those little cracks do get exposed, but it's just a hard shift for other people to do it, and you get out of the way. One thing I will say that you mentioned quickly that I think a lot of people don't do out there. You said, documenting what's done and really showcasing what's done. That's probably the biggest gap that I see for a lot of you listening. A lot of your business or your ways are probably stuck in your head, and you may have shared it with someone on your team like once or twice, but just looking back at the Traction book by Gino Wickman, also another one looking at. I know we talk about that a lot. We're going to talk about EOS, I'm sure here, but they talk about when it comes to the vision, on average, you have to share it 7 times for people to start to get 7. And so that's the average number, meaning it might take 20 times for you to say something for it set into other people. So a lot of times an owner might say, oh, we do it this way around here. And they say it once, maybe they talk about it twice, but it's not enough. It's got to be documented. It's got to be talked about a lot to be completely ingrained in the team. And so to really document what you do and even leverage, veterans on your team that have been around to help document what you do. What is the way? So in Cut and Wealth, what is the Cut and Wealth way? What is your firm's way that you do things around there? The more you have the information organized, the easier it will be for other people to grasp. So that's part of this too, is it's about you shifting and letting go and other people doing, but they're not going to be able to do unless what they need to do is so simple and crystal clear. And I would try and dummy it down to the simplest steps possible, make it very easy for someone to just pick up and execute and do, take the complexity away. That is such a gap in so many practices. But if you can do that, if you can document along the way, you can take some like pit stops and pause and do that. It makes the biggest difference. And it really helps get over that hurdle of 5 million. And it does get easier actually, when you get to this space, when you do cross over 5, you do cross over 10, it is easier to grow. It's just, it's getting to this point, I think, is so difficult. And then getting out of this point, crossing over, 10 million to 8 figures in revenue, that's a big business. It's really tough, but documenting, making those changes, it's those simple things make the biggest difference.
Yeah. So John, as you were talking, as usual, 10 or 12 thoughts went through my mind. So a few things I would just echo and maybe go even a step deeper on. One is when you go back to adult learning, right? And you talked about 10, 20, 70. One of the things that I've heard Ray talk about, and it really resonates with me, is the 20% is actually the multiplier. That's the great multiplier. The knowledge is just knowledge. The doing, right? Obviously, the 70% is where the results actually occur. But the ability to go from the learning to the doing has to come through coaching or environment. Okay. Otherwise, what you're relying on is your ability to change without any external force, which, by the way, there are people out there that do that. I happen to be one of those people. It's why I've grown my business to the level that I have. I don't need an outside influence. I've kind of see things and have that internal motivation. I'm a little crazy, right? But most people don't have that. And if you
Yes.
haven't done it yet, it's likely because you don't have the ability to go through the behavioral change yet. So the great multiplier is recognizing that and then being able to surround yourself with someone or a group who's done it before to actually help you start doing the 70%, which is where all the magic happens, right? But if people, they learn, they don't apply that learning because change is hard. You don't get to do the 70% for long enough to drive the desired outcome. So Paul Latham has been a guest on the podcast. Paul is Anton Anderson's partner, who's one of, as you know, John, our founding members of the Financial Advisor Success Syndicate. I've learned a ton from Paul. Two things that I'll share about Paul. Paul tells his story. He grew up in the accounting space, or a different world. But he always says that he was a time traveler, which means he's from the UK. And the way he would tell the story is what the US is going through in our accounting world, what CPA firms here are going through, is what the UK went through 20 or 30 years ago, which is accountants in the UK aren't necessarily their main job is not doing compliance work, meaning tax preparation and audits and things along those lines. They do it, but their number one role is actually being a business advisor, if that makes sense. And where our accounting world is going to here in the US, if you follow it at all, which I do very deeply, is accountants and CPAs are being forced to recreate themselves, and they're being forced to actually be more of a business advisor than they are just a backwards looking accountant. They need to be a forward looking advisor and help their business clients or individual clients actually grow, right? And advise them to do so. So Paul, because this is what they did in England, saw it 20 years ago. When he relocated to the US, he was like, man, I've seen this story before. I know everything that it's going to, and he built a whole company around it, which is an amazing company. I consider myself, and I consider you, John, to be a little bit of a time traveler in that I've already seen it. I already made the mistakes from 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 40, and I'm making the mistakes from 40 to 80 right now. You've watched me make those mistakes, John, and you've helped many advisors go from 5 to 10 and 10 and above, right? So you need a time traveler. And that is ultimately why we're here on the podcast. It's why we've created the Financial Advisor Success Syndicate. It's why we do some of the masterminds that we do, et cetera, so that 20% of coaching can actually come from someone who's been there, done that. Okay. And then the last thing that I wanted to say, I've got a lot, very chatty as usual today, is, again, another Paul Latham thing that I stole from him. I say it all the time now, is you need to make the intangible tangible. So your process is intangible if it is in your brain.
Yes.
It becomes tangible if it is in CRM for everyone to drive. Or for that matter, if it's on a piece of paper that's, stapled to a wall, it's better than it being in
something.
Your right.
Yeah.
But I always use McDonald's, right? So McDonald's, what's a Big Mac? It's 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickled onions on a sesame seed bun. If you're in our age group, you remember that's how you make a Big Mac. And you go into a McDonald's, that's what you're going to get. If you walk into a financial planning practice, you can't get 1 all beef patty, no special sauce, extra pickles, and tomatoes, right? That is not the way McDonald's delivers a Big Mac, right? They deliver it the same way each and every time. And I guess you can get it the way you want at McDonald's too, but you hopefully the message there ultimately connects. So I just wanted to hit those points, John. What I'd like to move to is, so to set the stage for where I think we are, right? We're understanding that, we need to be a CEO, right? We're understanding change is hard. You probably need someone to help you with that 20%, right? That coaching so that you can move. If you recognize those things, and then you start to think about what's next in the journey. So you've made the decision to do that. You've put a system or process in place to reduce your client base, all things we've talked about. You now have time, okay? jumping the gun here. There's a process to do that. You can't wiggle your nose and make that happen overnight. But let's pretend for a minute you're there. You've got 50 clients. They all have $2 million or better on average. They don't take an awful lot of your time. You're a $5 million producer and you want to go to 10. Okay. What would you say, John, is your next best action as you start to think about how to plan the future and how to actually run the organization?
Yeah, this shift, it really has a lot to do with capacity management. What can the advisors on your team handle? What are the metrics? How many clients can they service? So there's so many industry studies out there. A lot of them say it's 160 if they're fully engaged clients having like quarterly real interactions. You just add up the numbers and the time. It's around there. If they have a blend of clients, some clients that don't require that much. Moss Adams did a study, said there's about 250 clients an advisor could handle. So you look at just the quality of client that your firm's going to service. You look at the advisor force. It becomes about capacity management. So yes, organic growth is critical. Advisors always have to be doing more with clients. There's endless business with them. We've always got to be doing that. Getting referrals, having sources of ways that, hopefully professional alliances and you're bringing in new clients for the firm is really critical. But to maintain a really high growth level, you're going to have to play in the mergers and acquisition space, right? To grow at 20, 30% a year, it's just going to require that. And if you're going to have acquisitions, that's great, but it also really requires capacity management. You've got to have advisors on your team who are ready, right? They're fully trained in your ways. They can execute in their ways. They have experience in your firm's ways. And if there was a big absorption of multiple hundreds of clients to an acquisition, it can be handled. If you're have an acquisition and don't have the force to do it, it's not going to work. So it's a lot of this is going to be the balance of, okay, what does our advisor force look like? What is our structure there? How many clients and revenue can be handled? And then what can we handle from a pipeline of acquisitions? Some practices say, gosh, we can probably handle one a year realistically, just where our advisor force is at and how quickly we're finding advisors or train them up within our firm. But some practices might be handled more. Say, hey,
Sure.
we've got a bunch of people on our bench that are ready to go. Yeah, it's not as profitable along the way to do that, to be paying some people to be on the bench ready. It's more profitable to have everyone maxed out doing, $500,000, $1 million in production per advisor. I mean, that's a much more profitable business. But if you're going to grow and scale, you've got to have some advisors on the bench. You've got to have advisors with some capacity who can handle that next acquisition. So we've got some that handle multiple per year, some that can handle one every quarter because they've got the bench built and they're willing to say, hey, I'm not going to take 2 million out of the business. I'm fine with taking $500,000 out of the business and have a great living. And I'm going to reinvest some of that to get great people here and get them ready to handle these acquisitions. So yes, growth fundamentals are key, but it's going to be how much can you acquire? What do you need on your advisor force to handle that? And again, managing that capacity, that's a big part of that stage of growth. And again, for you as the owner, this is the shift. You got to be more in this space because you're out of so many client meetings. You're working more of these things and evaluating who do we need to bring in for advisors? What's our pipeline of acquisition opportunities? How can we load in more of those because they all don't work out? How can we manage that? It's a lot of time there. It's a really lot of time, but that balance is really key. And people that figure that out easily cross over at 10 million.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, John. And as we're talking here, I want to be a little mindful of time, and I think this is going to be worthy of a part two as well. Where I'd like to go on the next episode, because I think if we keep going here, we're gonna overwhelm people a little bit. I think we can kind of break there, but from a part two perspective, I can share, and I know, John, this is what you generally help advisors with as well, is to me, when you've made the decision, right, and you've actually said, I am now CEO. I am no longer advisor. I'm CEO. I am the visionary of this business. The next best action where I'd like to go deeper on is well, how do you build the vision? And John, you started to hit the pieces of the vision, which is, well, how many advisors, I mean, how many clients per advisor, and how many do I need?
Yeah.
And how many acquisitions do I need to do? And
Mhm.
how many CPA alliances do I need? And do I need a marketing team? And do I need a business development team? And, and what's my pricing look like? And there's a million things that go into that. But I believe where a lot of advisors go wrong is they don't sit down and work on the business and go, okay, I'm at 4.2 million. I want to go to 10. What does it look like 10 years from now? Right? It might look like a $50 million business in 10 years if you're at 4 million now, right? And if you dream a little and then you start to think about it, there's lots of ways. And this is an interesting thing that I think we should go into the next time. You know, as I talk to more and more advisors, you're 100% right. I would say the way we find most advisors get to that level is by engaging in some level of M&A, right? Because it just
Mhm.
creates quantum growth. And right, you take someone's 30 years of building a business and you acquire it or you merge it, and poof, you've doubled, or you've 20% growth, et cetera.
Mhm.
But there's also something to be said for building other systems to organically grow at scale, right? So whether that be a robust CPA partnership, whether that be a robust marketing system, a seminar program, CPA alliances, buying accounting firms, right? Partnering with accounting firms, utilizing digital marketing, so on, et cetera, right? The fees that you charge, we've talked a lot about that. Maybe you're not charging enough, or you're not doing
Mhm.
planning, right? So as you start to kind of think, and where I think it'll lead is us really going maybe a little deeper on EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, or 40X, there's lots of different tools. I'd love to go deep there and then start to actually, I don't want to say script out, but think through all of the different possibilities of, I like to call it the verticals, right? The different
Mhm.
units as the CEO that you have to have in your business, and how to actually start to get those things spinning towards your 10-year plan. Would you think that would be productive for the next session?
Yeah, that's really great because it gets down to more the nitty gritty, how to what's working there, and there's some great components, and it's this is fun for me. Before we started this, I said the cut, and I said, "Gosh, this is all I talk about all day every day is with these practices. This is all I work with, and dig deeper on. Okay, this is what they're using. This is the tools. This is the structure. These are the things that really help them get to the next level. And just going back to organizing the information. I mean, the entrepreneur organization system, EOS. I mean, it helps. You need things like that to be your compass and to really help you get to 10x. You need some guides and some things like this. So just to get a glimpse into what other large practices that have made this leap and gone past 10 million, what are they using to grow here? I think that would be great. It pulls the curtain back just a little bit more.
Yeah, let's do that. I didn't probably think I was going to go as deep. So my usual way is when I get excited, I go deep. I think the mindset part, I thought we would go quicker on today, but honestly, as we got into it, it became
Such a big
clearer to
one.
me that
Yeah,
that's it. Until you're
such a
self-aware
big one.
enough to go, hey, you know what? I'm not changing, and there's a reason I'm not changing. I need to change the way I think. Then all we're doing right now is we're giving people information, right? So I want to let people digest that, and then on the next episode, I want to switch from mindset and thinking differently to, once you have a different mindset and you're thinking differently, well, what the heck do you do? How do you teach yourself how to think that way as a CEO? Now that you are one, you kind of need a little bit of a process to ultimately do that. So I think that would be a great way for us to kind of put a cap on this $5 million to $10 million piece. So, Johnny, any final remarks or anything that you wanted to hit before we wrap for today's session?
No, I just say these are so much fun. I mean, as you listen here, John Cudney is an outlier, which is why he's gone so far down the path. But the best part of these podcasts is just learning from someone that's gone so far, and it's really fun to do these and just show, hey, here's the roadmap for you, and you can do it too. I mean, that's the great thing about here is there's regular people that are regular advisors that have made these leaps. And I think it's become, you know, from a lot of things you've talked about here, Cotton, it's learning from others, learning the path, and then starting to take some steps to walk those paths. So the more we can showcase on the path and show you here, it's really fun to do this. So looking forward to more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Johnny. And I am a regular person, by the way. I just, again, I want to connect this for our audience. It's just a different way of thinking. And like, it's once you see it and you learn it, you can't unsee it and learn it, right? It just takes a while of doing it. And like I said, I've got the luxury of being in a time machine. I can go back and remember what it was to be a $5 million or $10 million producer. And I know what I thought then, right? And now I know what I know now. And that's why I'm so passionate. And I do these podcasts, and we've created the Financial Advisor Success Syndicate, is I want to take that knowledge, right? And your knowledge and the rest of the founding members' knowledge and give it away, right? And give it to advisors so that they have not only the knowledge, the 10%, but a little bit of the 20% too, to be around people like us who are doing these things on a day-to-day basis, because it takes a little bit, but that's how mindset ultimately changes, is by hearing the same thing at least 7 times, right? As you said before, and for most, it might be 20. And from someone who's been there and ultimately done that. So with that being said, I do have an ask of our listeners. And my ask is, as you know, we have no paid ads. We don't ask for anything at all, other than to maybe share it with a friend here and then. I do have an ask, and my ask is, check out the Financial Advisor Success Syndicate. Go to joinfass.com. It is absolutely free. It is myself, as we've talked about. It is John. It is Anton Anderson. It is Ray Kelly. It is David Grau Jr. It is Tina Beck. It is Frank LaRosa. It's a lot of the guests that we've had here. These are the people that I rely on, that are my trusted experts in different fields, that are unbelievable thought leaders like John is. And I would love, as a favor to me, for you to join the Financial Advisor Success Syndicate. Check it out, give us feedback, engage. And I genuinely think it will be like nothing you've ever participated in before, and it will genuinely help you create quantum growth inside of your wealth management business. So with that being said, there's my shameless selling for nothing you need to buy, just to help you a little bit more. But as we wrap, John, thanks again for being on the show. We'll have you back right away again for part 2 of this. And to our listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of Quantum Growth for Financial Advisors. If you yourself or anyone you know could be a good, interesting guest, shoot us a note, let us know, and we'll see if we can get you or that special person on. So make it a great day, and thanks for listening.